before I could read.
All right. 10 o'clock, we'll call the meeting in order. Rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome, everyone. Josh can't be here, so I'm sitting in as vice chair, and JJ can't be here. So we're down to three of us. Is there anybody online for public comment? No. Anybody in the room for public comment? All right, I'm gonna make one public comment myself. I think all of us commissioners received the email this morning from Vern C. Anderson regarding signs up on Lakeland Road in Windermere Township. So I'm going to just move that notification to the Transportation Committee, and they will make sure it gets there.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, I think the highway engineer is also planning to discuss it on as part of the road tour on May 13th, I think that date is, and so that would be a good forum for that if you're agreeable.
Yeah, and then those issues can be addressed by the board. So I just want to acknowledge he sent it out. He has the right that we acknowledge his email. So without any further public forum, I'll move on to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there's no additions. I just want to make a couple of comments. We rarely have only 3 commissioners, and so I just want to be sure everybody is aware that under Minnesota statute 375.07, any motion would require an affirmative vote of all 3 of you. So if there's a 2-to-1 split, that motion would fail because the statute requires a majority of all commissioners. So just as you're thinking through your activities today, that will be good to keep in mind.
Thanks for that. Yeah. We are all authority. It's a forum is still a full forum.
And then on the agenda, you'll note that Mindy Sandell was going to do the presentation on the Memorial Forest dedication. That's actually going to be Greg Beck instead. And then as part of the budget update, the first quarter budget update, I'm also going to talk a little bit about the legislative update. And I presume we'll have some good conversation at that point.
Mr. Chair. Also, I would like to move item 8 under the consent agenda to the regular agenda. I don't care where you'd like to put that in. But
Okay, so got that, Deb? Okay, and then we'll put it at 3.1.
Okay.
We'll move that there to the higher on the regular agenda. Okay, then I'll look for a motion on the agenda.
So move. I'll second.
Okay, yeah. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Okay, the minutes of the April 1, 2025 regular county board meeting for approval.
I'll move that.
Okay. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Acknowledge minutes, boards, committees, and correspondence. There's none. Consent agenda that's amended with new item 8 removed. I'll move that. I'll move the consent.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, to regular agenda. Personnel committee. And I'll take that. So I'll cover the main points first and then we can touch on some stuff. But so the on administration, it was all pretty much administrative personnel meeting. We approved an updated job description and a regrade of the human resources manager position from a grade 14 to grade 15. And that position was reviewed in the Springstead class and compensation system. So and she does a lot of work, I mean, there's a lot of work and she's busy all the time. So, and then the second thing we discussed was creating a starting salary and a cap salary for our county attorneys. County attorney to the chief deputy county attorney to the assistant county attorneys. There hasn't been one in there, and I think Dave called it out, it's always been like, everybody else has, we kind of have a start in things. Nobody's wages are changing now, but there is a cap set, when you saw that, so. That's pretty much it. And then, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Dave, or I think that pretty much covers it. We created a scale.
And
And then
we never had a scale for the county attorney's office
Right.
before, if I remember right.
Right.
And so we're setting that now so that
Yeah,
they can hire within that scale.
and we can look at it a couple of different, we can look at like, does that help Reese? Because Reese says, okay, I'm working the parameters the county board set, so it might help him in some ways. And it might become a hindrance at some point in time. But to me, when I look at it, I think the market drives this thing. With the,
Well, it certainly does with the.
right. Well, I went through
When the
when I
state
was
set
working.
the public defender's salary schedule, I think it really prompted my mind to go, we better watch out what we're doing, and pretty soon all of our prosecutors will be public defenders.
Yeah, that data is in there. That's pretty amazing what they set up, but it's, so that was pretty much the nuts and bolts of our meeting. And I will move those items forward.
I will.
You know what? I want to add one comment.
Yeah,
Those salaries are changing because of this now. It just presents the scale on whole. So
I will second that.
you'll second that?
Yes.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair. I think if I understand right, there was a scale before. It's just that it wasn't being followed, because we were, and it's historically whatever. It's not just something that happened yesterday or last year. But, and I get it, that our governor threw a real wrench into this by, the public defender's got a significant, some would say massive, I'd say significant raise last year. And so, it threw a wrench into what we're looking at. I'll just say this, and we're gonna be talking about budget later on, but this does factor into this. Maybe not at the moment, because those salaries are already set, and I'm not looking at, well, we need to reduce somebody's, but I am very concerned about the significant increase in the scale and the effect that that's going to have
The growth.
on our future and all the other departments, because we don't live in a vacuum. So my recommendation, I know we have a motion, is to send this back to personnel and look at the scale. And maybe there's somewhere in between, instead of just, well, let's adopt the scale to match where people are at. Maybe the scale is different, but we grandfather those people in, because I don't want to see people get cut, in wages that are still here, but we're going to have to make some hard decisions, I think, in the, very soon future. And I'd really like you guys to look at this one more time, the scale.
All good points, well taken, but yeah. I don't know, I don't want to argue against that, those are good points, but you're right, I think we all concerned about the growth of salaries, right? Sooner or later, when do they stop, right? But to me, that's why I say it's market, and I don't know how we'd ever reduce salaries in the future, but I can remember when I was working where it's like zero increases and zero increases. I went through a couple contracts like that, when the market fell. But still, we're maintaining a pretty high salary at that time when that happens, right? So, I don't,
And we've already, Mr. Chair, we've already got a scale that, you know, I don't think people are hitting the top of the scale yet. What would be the point of the scale? You know, but, that's just my opinion. I'd like to see it sent back.
yep. Reese, do you have any comments you want to make about that? How it affects, you know, your management or anything like that?
Mr. Chair, I guess that's stuff we've already discussed, but, the way the wages are set now, they're competitive, at least regionally. I mean, it's a situation now where people don't want to be prosecutors anymore and law school is expensive. Spend a couple $100,000 in law school and nobody's going to go into a public service job anymore. Any person on my staff could leave today and by Friday, they'll have a new job making 25 to 50% more than here. My applications went down. I used to get 50 applications for an open slot. My last opening, I had 2 applications. One was somebody who had no experience and the other was a person that we actively recruited who actually took a pay cut from the public defender's office to work in my office. So, you know, I'm mandated by statute to provide certain services. I'm, and of course, one of the big reasons that government exists is for public safety, and we are here for public safety. And if I don't have people to accomplish that, these positions probably, who knows what happens? You're not going to have quality. Positions like this could go away. You could have some states, the Attorney General's office is taking local prosecutions over. Some places they're doing it regionally, and some places they just don't have county attorneys anymore because county attorneys can't find staff, and they've said that's just too much stress and we're done. So I just think looking long-term, it's important to be competitive and to have long-term talent and kind of keep that talent. And so I think the way it's set right now, I think it's a good scale.
Any further discussion?
I have one more comment. Go ahead.
Well, I think, I mean, we have kicked this around, but this isn't the first time we've heard this, and I think in my mind, they've looked at it, the personnel committee's looked at it several times. And we just kind of kicked the can down the road, and now the road is at the end. We got to do, I think it's time to do something.
Mr. Chair, my last comment would be, maybe you have talked about this in the past, but I don't know that it's been talked about, you know, at the board, the full board level. The other thing is we have 2 board members gone, and I don't, delaying it a month to relook at it, I think would be fair to those other board members as well to weigh in, and maybe nothing will change, but, you know, I don't know. So I'm just offering that as a, let's send it back.
Mr. Chair, I have no words of wisdom. Because this, I mean, I think genuinely this is a hard one, but I would encourage you to also think in terms of it's not just the pay, it's you as commissioners working to build and define your relationship with the county attorney. So there's a big trust issue that, you know, to me is a part of this conversation. And then the second one is just a pragmatic mechanical issue. If the motion might fail on a divided vote, any one of you could request division, as there's 2 items in the motion. The HR piece is distinct and separate from the attorney piece. And so if there was a sense that one might be easier to pass than the other, any one of you could request a division and then they could be voted on separately.
I'll do that. I will say, let's take them separate. We'll take item 1 and then item 2. Fair enough. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
I will move item 1. That's just the,
And it's already moved. And so there is a parliamentary rule that says on items that are distinct and separate that are included in a single motion, any member can request that they be divided for separate votes.
thank you, Dave.
And I mean, in my mind, you can approve one and not approve the other, not approve one, approve them both, deny them both, and they have no impact on each other, so they're easily separated.
Thank you, David. So I will move item 1. Yeah, that's already moved. We'll call for vote on item 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then if you want, I mean, I can't presuppose a vote, right? But just based on the conversation, if you wanted to do an amendment that simply deferred until the next meeting, further discussion on that.
That's just what I was gonna ask you. Can we do that? So, okay, so I'll move that. I'll amend that motion to honor Commissioner Nelson's request to table it for a month
A second.
Or a month or the next meeting.
or the next meeting, yeah. So,
Till the personnel committee has time to meet.
okay. So, all in favor of that? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
That wasn't so bad. Gotta make a note to myself there. Okay, we'll move on to a letter of support, and I think Jerry is up for our present. Yeah.
I think,
we can start.
Leslie, do you want to frame it up, Leslie, or are you just?
Yeah, okay, and let's,
Good morning. I'm Leslie Sauter, your Economic Development Coordinator, and with me today is the folks from MediaCom. We have Jerry presenting for their request for a letter of support as well as a financial contribution for the broadband equity access deployment application, which is due to deed this month on the 21st. So Jerry, I invite you up to give your presentation.
Thank you so much, Leslie, and thank you, gentlemen, for having us present here today. We had met with Leslie earlier on the 31st of March, and we wanted to take it further and present to you all in person. I have with me Zachary. He is our area director in Minnesota. I flew down all the way from Gulf Breeze, Florida, to be with you all today.
All right.
Basically wanted to make sure you all know that we are out here to help with your broadband initiatives. I know this is a very significant opportunity for us and for as well as Pine County residents. So I did give you all a handout. Basically, the project that we have, it does encompass part of Carlton County. Carlton and Pine counties together, this project that we have will build out 357 miles of fiber, and it will serve 2,381 residents, unserved and underserved. In specifically Pine County, it would be 193 miles of fiber, and we would be providing service to 1,104 unserved or underserved locations. So if funding is approved, the full project build is anticipated to take 3 years to complete. However, we will launch services in phases to deliver broadband access to locations as quickly as possible. So one of the things would be to, obviously, 5 points would be the letter of support, and the other 5 would be the financial commitment. MediaCom is able to fund on our own, but with the specifications of the application to take it further, to get the extra 5 points would be the financial commitment. So we are asking at any level, there is no stipulation of any amount. So if you would like to contribute to the project for our build and for a BEAD application and show BEAD that you are in partnership with us through your letter as well as your contribution, great. Again, it is optional for the financial commitment part, but definitely your letter of support is what we would like as well, first and foremost. And I do have Zachary here with me. If you have any build questions specifically or any other questions that you would like to ask us today, we are all here.
Good. Thank you very much for coming, and I'm really, really happy because I've worried about that portion of our county for a long time. And thanks MediaCom for stepping up to the plate and Golf Breeze is a wonderful place. We winter in Perdido Key,
Oh, wow.
or just down the road, across the bay. But anyway, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate, and I'll be very proud to make a motion to support this.
You're gonna make you move it?
I will move it with $1,000 contribution
Okay.
and a letter of support.
Second.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Wonderful.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
I think I heard 3-year build out from the time if you get the acceptance of the grants. And would that, do you anticipate, when do you anticipate you would know the acceptance of the grant?
We would know if we are following B timeline, we would probably know by the end of, I would say fall of 2025.
This fall.
Start the build out would probably, by mid 2026, maybe to the fall. 2026. That is when we expect the build out to begin. Is that correct, Zach?
Yeah, about a year from now would be the first thing on the calendar, and we'd activate phases. So a 3-year timeline, we'd activate 500 homes in Oelton County at a time, so we would activate through that period. But the first shovel will go in the ground sometime, if this goes according to plan, start of the second quarter next year, depending on the winter.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Veterans Memorial Forest dedication, and then Mindy's not here, like Dave said, so Greg gonna present on that.
Morning,
Greg.
Greg Beck, your Pine County Forester and Land Commissioner. Mindy couldn't be with us today. She was originally going to address the veterans ceremony event that we're having. So at the last minute, I scrambled to put together something here and called Jennifer Frederickson there. She'll fill me in on a little bit of the details for what are going to happen at the event. So those who you all know who I am, but those who are online and that, I do manage our county memorial forest lands and been here for 35 years. So pretty familiar with them all, and it's been a great honor to have been a part of what this dedication is all about. So kind of, you all know what has occurred in the past, but our audience may not. Back in 2010 was the beginning of our county memorial forest lands. And at that time, we designated along with, and in the future, through a couple other county board resolutions, a little over 36,200 acres of memorial forest lands. And then last November, our county board members dedicated those lands to our military veterans. And with that, we plan to have a ceremony on a memorial forest site. And we picked a site north of Duquette, beautiful location. Unfortunately, Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate with us at this time of year. And that was off the Erickson Road. And at the end of the road, there was a couple spots where the frost boils and the spring rains have made the road basically impassable for the amount of people that are going to be at our ceremony. So we have changed the location of the event. And I brought a letter here that I'll give to you that shows that location change.
Thank you.
So, the location change, and I want to thank, Herrick Township for the, cooperation, of allowing us to use their park in, Duquette. The site's, really only about a half mile away. And it's at the, Jack E. Berger Memorial Park. And it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise of the way this occurred. It's, it has some really nice amenities to it, a real nice location, and it is a memorial park recognizing Jackie Berger, who was a World War II veteran, a private who died in action during World War II. So it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, the way this is, their event has changed its location. At the, for our event, we will be, we'll have the American Legion posting the colors. Also, there'll be a group from the East Central Eagles band, with music and that. We're gonna have some speakers, both Josh and Steve are gonna make a small presentation on our sign that we'll be, having across our county memorial forest lands. Myself, I'll be making a small speech there, and then we'll have a couple Air Force veterans making some presentations, one of which will be Brad Jensen, and the other would be our very own Reese Frederickson here. I want to mention too that your wife, Jen, there did mention we're going to do a stand-up comedy act for us.
News to me, thank you.
For that.
So, yeah, it's a great event. It's, a lot of people have been involved in this. When it first was initialized, our advisory committee, rolled through it, and, made a few changes. It went to, all of our, county, American Legions, BFWs, EAVs, and through the whole process, it was changed a little bit here and there, and it's become really a great event. It started out as a little small snowball and has grown into a big ball that's rolled, a snowball that's rolled down the hill, and it's become consistently large for this event. One thing I'd like to leave with you, and then also open it for any questions that might be available, is that when this first occurred, the first initial spark that started this, the idea was that when a snowmobiler traveled through some of our county forest lands, or somebody stopped at a parking area to possibly grouse hunt, or we had a logging crew go up some of our forest management roads to do some timber harvest, that there would be, after this event and years later, that there would be a message for people to stop and reflect. And that message is on this sign here. It's right there as well. And I don't know if anybody can see this online. Maybe not. But the message states that this is Pine County public land, memorial forest, and it's in honor of our military vets. And that we remember you for your service, for your courage, honor, and commitment, and to those who gave their lives as the ultimate sacrifice. And that we stop and reflect on all you gave us in protecting the freedoms of our nation. I think that statement is absolutely awesome. That that you support and of through your resolution that we post this in memory. Again, the event is at Berger Memorial Park in Duquette, and that is April 26th at 10:30. That's less than a couple weeks away. There'll be signs posted out front, signage, and really looking forward. Just pray for some decent weather. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for shepherding this whole thing along, Greg. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to, it'll be 3.1, new hire for, the grant.
And Mr. Chair?
Yep.
This was a position that was approved in the 2026 budget. There was a vacant account tech position in HHS accounting, and that was restructured. The grade did increase a little bit to focus on grants administration with the primary purpose of helping the county auditor with managing the day-to-day minutia of the grants. Auditor Treasurer Kelly Schroeder is here and can, speak to as much detail as you want. And then Commissioner Nelson might have some specific questions or want to frame it up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Roger.
Okay, well, I guess, first off, I just wanted to make clarification, this is not necessarily, although it may appear like it's a new position, it's actually a position that was open that has been maybe reframed.
Yep, put somewhere else.
Okay,
Renamed.
Yeah, and the grade was increased a little bit, so the cost of the position is a bit higher. And then how the position is paid for changed. And so previously it was paid out of the Health and Human Services budget. And so a portion of it was paid by the general tax levy or the HHS tax levy. Moving it to where it is now, it's going to be split equally 50-50 between the general fund and the Health and Human Services fund.
And then tax levy dollars follow.
Oh, yeah. And so if you look at the Health and Human Services levy from 2024 to 2025, you'll see it decreased in the amount that was attributed to this position.
About how many grants are you managing? Or, it's a big workload.
Right. So Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer, because it focuses both on the general fund and on Health and Human Services. So between the two, and it's not just grants, because there's, for example, aids that the county gets, but then there's reporting we have to do on them. So it's really, it's special programs and grants. And between the two, I would say there's about 40. And currently, departments are managing them. And then, yes, we pay the bills and things out of finance. And what we're finding is those reports that departments are doing don't match our financial system. Because they're managing them over here, how they think they should manage them. And they're paying the bills and we're paying the bills, but they're not, like, the two aren't talking. And so the position really is to make sure that the two match and collaborate. Because should the grant or the special program be audited, they need to match.
Mr. Chair, just a question. So is there program or administration funds that are available in some of these grants and programs?
Correct. So some of these grants and special programs absolutely do have, for example, indirect costs that we could be grabbing. But sometimes we find that departments put together the grant budget and they didn't know what indirect costs were and they left it out. And so our hope is now that this person will be at the beginning helping so that we can help construct those budgets, make sure we're grabbing dollars that we can grab that will help pay for the position.
Mr. Chair, one other question. Will this position as well be looking, just not only managing existing grants, but also be having an eye for new grants that are out there, or is that still left to departments?
No, I think that this person is going to be looking for those things. The one thing that I want to clarify, though, that this person isn't a grant writer, because really it's a partnership with the department. The departments know the programs, and so they're the ones that would probably be writing the grant, but this person would be the support of that, because the grant is dollars. And it would be able to help them formulate what that needs to look like. But yes, they'll be in kind of all of the systems where they get notification of grants. they'll start to learn about our different programs that our departments do and be able to make that connection of, wait, you're doing this and I just saw this grant over here. We should look at it too, because we could actually get grant dollars to pay for whatever it is you're doing over here.
Well, thank you for the clarifications. You know, my last comment will be, and I'll be saving some more comments for our budget, report and all that, but, it's part of the, whenever we add personnel, making sure we really, especially in these low budget times. So that's why I was asking it come forward so we can really discuss this.
And
I'll look
Mr.
for a motion to, we have to approve this though.
Correct. And if I could add one more comment to Commissioner Nelson's point, I think that is a good message and a message about managing vacancies that we need to really focus on. And literally right now, we have a vacancy in a clerk 3 position in the auditor treasurer's office that Kelly is looking to reduce to part-time versus full-time, because that is on everyone's mind. And so it's, I think it's a conversation that we're going to continue to have.
I'll look for a motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay.
Ryan's
Quarter update.
Right, Ryan is pushing the right buttons. Dave Menke, County Administrator. The first quarter budget update is usually the boringest of the year because there is hardly enough activity to get excited about. And the activity there is very expected. And so we still have the same 4 charts that you always see. This first chart just shows the general health and human services, road and bridge, and then overall all funds. The only head scratcher on here is when you look at the total, why is the total as a percent bigger than the sum of the 3 funds? It's because there's some other funds that don't show up as major funds. And in this case, it's really the bond funds that drive the payments early in the year higher because you make the first half bond payment. And so that makes sense. There's also some contracts, particularly IT contracts that get paid early in the year. So those look like they bulge the budget a little bit, but they're not a concern. The next chart shows revenue. This is where we highlight what a great job the auditor's office does. They always come in at nearly 100% in the first quarter of making all their revenues. Most of that, almost all of that is interfund transfers. And so it's really not external money coming in. It's costing out the various activities within the county. And so as a good auditor, Kelly, make sure you capture all those funds as soon as you can. But everything looks as we would expect it at this time of year. The next chart, the red bars show the 2025 expenditures by major fund or by major department in the general fund. And then the black line shows the 5-year average. Things are really tracking pretty solidly. Where there's a little bit of variance. We see veteran services is a little bit higher than the average, but that average includes many years where we had some vacancy savings and then we added a part-time position. And so there's been some changes in the budget for that. And then on the court security, they're a little bit out of whack because we during COVID and post-COVID, we had more budget than we had need. And so we didn't have as much court security. And so now we have a full-time presence or near full-time presence at the courthouse of court security. And then the jail, this is a happy thing, but an expensive thing. The jail historically has had significant vacancy savings, which always made the percent of budget expended pretty low. We are fully staffed with full-time correction officers in the jail. And so that it's a good thing that we're fully staffed, but obviously that's a more expensive thing. I was talking to to Jail Administrator Rod Williamson yesterday, and he made that exact point. He said, my budget is really tight this year, because he doesn't have the vacancy savings. And then this next chart just looks at health and human services, the major program areas, income maintenance, social services, public health. Revenues always lag, so we would expect them to look low, and expenditures are about where we expect them, so no surprises. Now, if there are any questions so far, if not, I'm going to transition a little bit to the legislative update because there clearly are ties to the budget. So the legislature is on break. It's the Easter Passover break. This is an opportune time individually for folks to reach out to our legislators and have conversations about what's going on. The first committee deadline has passed, and so at this point, if the rules are followed, and of course, the legislature can amend the rules as they need, but if a bill has not been heard in at least one committee, it would be considered dead. But we know that sometimes at the 11th hour on the floor, things get added, so you can't rule everything out. But the cards are pretty much dealt. How they're going to end up on the table, we don't know yet, but at this point, a lot of the cards have been dealt. So our legislators should have a lot of insight into what they think is possible and what's not possible. We know that for fiscal year 26-27, which starts July 2025, right? There is a very small surplus in cash, but there's a structural deficit. And so it really only balances because it's spending surplus from previous years. The out years, 28, 29, huge deficit, right? So that's really, if you put your blinders on and just look at 26, 27, it's not a hard math problem. You know, there's not a lot of money to do new stuff with, but it could balance the budget. But the 28, 29 budget is the one that is really challenging and will be challenged. So at this point, another thing that makes it confusing is there's 3 budget proposals out there. There's the governor's, which we've had the most conversation on because it's been out the longest. There's the Senate and the House, and each of them has different detail. The strategy of all 3 of them is pretty much the same, and that's aid reductions, cost share increases, new cost shifts, and just new costs. And most of that is being done to counties. Counties, when looking at all local governments, townships, cities, school districts, all of them have their own story to tell. And I'm not, suggesting any of them have it easy. Each one of these proposed budgets hurts counties more than it hurts any of those other local units of government. And that's a message that we should probably make sure our legislators understand. There's reasons for that, but nonetheless, it's balancing the state budget on counties is a legitimate message. So just taking a snapshot, these are not exhaustive, and I really rely on the Association of Minnesota Counties and the various, professional associations that staff have, because I don't have the wherewithal to read these hundreds of pages of legislation and make heads or tail. So I just repeat what I come across that seems most important or interesting. We've talked about the PILT reduction. We've talked, I think, about the highway user tax distribution. So they're taking money out of the highway fund and moving it to the general fund. Well, that helps us on one end, but it doesn't help us on the other end. And you can't cut roads and bridges and not have an impact, right? County state aid is a huge portion of our budget. The governor proposed to totally eliminate cannabis aid. Governor proposed to cut 50% of the AIS aid. The police training aid. So we get about $900 per year per deputy to support training. I think when the bill was passed before, it was the Philando Castile training requirements. But in any case, the Senate cuts that $5 million, and that would be reducing from about $900 a year to $300 a year per deputy. The House only cuts it $1 million, so it wouldn't be as big. But clearly, there's all of the plans just cut aid here and there and wherever they think they can. The reason that the budget is being balanced on counties is because most of the cuts are in HHS. Most of the growth in the state budget is in health and human services. So education has a lot of growth, health and human services has a lot of growth. And we all understand as people who make public budgets that if you want to cut the budget, you have to cut the things that are most expensive. So we get it. However, I'm going to just pop to the next slide. This is one sheet that I cut in half. So these at the bottom are the totals of the governor. I should have looked, I forgot. It's the governor, the House, and the Senate. So the House is the middle two columns. But if you look at the bottom line, the governor is proposing in the 26-27 fiscal year to cut $370 million of aid. The House, 392 million or 393 almost, and then the Senate is the least at 225 million. Those are big numbers no matter how you slice them. And I'm not gonna review all of these. We did spend a lot of time. You see that DWRS county share, that's the waivered services piece. And so if you look at the governor's budget, he is proposing one cost shift. The House has a whole different proposal that would hit the same services, but in a different way. The House presented that as this is better for counties. We really don't think it's better for counties. New costs. All right, we've been talking about paid family leave. That's 0.0044 of our total wages, right? That's assuming that we can get it into 7 more collective bargaining agreements that we split at 50-50 because the total rate is 0.88. So that $100,000 is really $200,000 from Pine County employer and employee. We have that 50-50 split in 3 contracts. Our goal is to get that in all contracts. But that's, you know, brand new cost is, it'll be at least $100,000, give or take. And then Becky has talked significantly about the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Child Welfare Disparities Act. I'd practice that.
Come on.
And in 2026, to be ramped up January 1st, 2026. I'm sorry, 2027, to be ready to go January 1st, 2027. We have to start that in 2026. And so she estimates that she would need about $300,000 in her 2026 budget to do that. And then it would be about $1.5 million going forward. Because everything up to this point is gloom and doom and bad news, I wanted to just sprinkle in something that I thought was more of a positive, right? So Minnesota is a high tax, high service state. The Annie E. Casey puts out this report on general child well-being. And Minnesota, this is from 2022, Minnesota shows up as number 3. So when we're thinking about what are we trying to protect, I think we're trying to protect being on the better or best side of these programs versus the worst or worst side of the programs. But those are political decisions. But we know child protection, for example, no state spends less money on child protection than Minnesota and state government. Most of child protection, or Minnesota counties spend more on child protection than any other state, than the counties in any other state, right? So we get the least state aid for child protection as an example. But we really get pretty good results. And that really is your taxpayers making up the difference. So I just wanted to highlight that we're really good at some of these things. And that's why it's hard to talk about cutting, is because cuts have real impacts. All right, so what do we do? We have to manage uncertainty. There is more that we don't know than we know. And right, the Dick Cheney quote is very famous now, the unknown unknowns versus the known unknowns. We mostly have known unknowns, but we have to wait until the legislature adjourns, which can't be after May 19th. They can always end early. But their constitutional deadline is May 19th. That will fix presumably the state budget unless they fail to reach a budget agreement. And I don't know, you ask people and there's legislators who show up on like, Almanac or the Mary Lou Hammer program or whatever, who are confident the legislature is going to reach agreement. And then you talk to others who are not legislators who are trying to get, lobbyists and pundits and they're not nearly as hopeful. So I don't know what to make, but we have a lot of uncertainty. We have to manage that because we can create a lot of concern and confusion and chaos in our conversations at the county board level and at the department head level that we need to be thoughtful. All right, so legislators are on break, great time to contact them. Minnesota is a state mandated county administered state. We're the minority of counties. Is it 16 or 19 or I don't know, Becky, if you know that number. I'm sorry?
Is it 9?
9, okay, maybe 9, but we're the minority where the state mandates the programs and says counties, you administer them. So we're partners. We're not just a separate local unit of government doing our own thing. Cost shifts are not reform. If we want to save money and cut programs, the legislature should not be allowed to just say, well, we're going to cut your funding, you figure it out, because the state law and the federal law drives the requirements. We have an awful lot of discretion in how we administer those programs, but we can't just up and walk away. And we also have to be conscious that we can't just increase caseloads, whether it's for attorneys or child protection workers or financial workers, to unmanageable amounts. Yeah, so in the governor's proposal, we know that there was a direct, at least $620,000 cost shift to HHS for 2026. And Becky sent me some emails since then that maybe updates that number or not, but the point is any of those budgets is really a direct impact on your taxpayers. HHS modernization. We can't do more with less with the old antiquated system. That's a good message to repeat. Representative Nelson has been a leader in his committee on trying to maintain a bipartisan approach to those. And then at the end of the day, a cost shift without mandate relief is really a property tax increase. So we need to review 2025 and look at, do we need to make that expenditure, right? Good questions and good discussion this morning on the grant position. I have noted that Kelly is looking at her clerk 3 position. All of your department heads are doing that as we go forward. And so that should be an expectation and that should be something that you are continue to press us on. 2026, we probably need to start earlier. We have this narrow window, right? The legislature really has to adjourn before we can do too much work. But we typically would have our first major budget meeting in August. We're proposing that we would do that July 8th. We'll have to come back and get, formal approval of the board to do that. But if you look at your calendars and pencil that in, that would be our proposal, that we would start that process. And then the department heads are going to have to ramp up their schedule to get started earlier on that. And I think I'm close to the end. Yes. So thoughts, questions, discussion.
I think you covered it really well. I don't have any questions.
So at the, AMC conferences, such, we had they brought in the governor, the legislator, and of course, the governor's budget was the only one out at the time, and everybody shot holes in it, how terrible. Even the legislators, both parties did, at that time. But now that it's come down to the wire, it's the same thing. It's just maybe dressed a little bit different.
Yeah, they take this program and say, we'll save this program, but we're gonna cut this program, but the money is the same.
Yeah.
You gotta cut that much money.
And so I think, thanks for the presentation, but when you talk about manage uncertainty, I mean, that's really what we have to do. As hopeful as we were that that they were gonna solve the problem and the governor was out to lunch, they're all doing the same thing, as a whole. And so those things are gonna come down to, and fall on us. If they talk about budget cuts, it's a cost shift. As you well pointed out, we still have to provide all these services, mandated services. None of those mandates are going away. They're not reducing you can find some little somewhere, but in the big picture, nothing has changed, other than to say counties, now you're gonna have to pay for all this stuff that we really think is important. And if you look back on the budget cycle of the state last year, they thought a whole lot of things were suddenly important. And they increased their budget and their mandates by almost 40%. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. But we're gonna have to absorb that. So all that to say, well, what do we do? I mean, looks like revenues, it's either revenues or expenses. And we'll get through this, it's not gonna last forever, but I will say it is gonna be, I expect it to be somewhat painful. And let's not kid ourselves that it's, I don't like to see employees laid off and such, but we need to be prepared for the fact that may very well have to be on the table unless you want to face a double-digit tax increase. And I don't know that the public has a stomach for that either. So it's going to be tough decisions. And so that starts today, that starts yesterday rather than, and so that's my comments. So.
Okay, you want anything to add, Steve? Good to move on. All right, move on to commissioner updates. Towards zero death.
That conflicted with another meeting I will report on later.
Yep, facilities, it was canceled. Josh isn't here for the joint judicial ditch. Northeast Minnesota Transportation.
I went to that, kind of doling out some of the federal money. There wasn't as much. We kind of picked the projects at the last meeting, kind of a doling out of those projects. This meeting, I think you will see less. Although if you drive down the road right now, you won't think this if you're heading to certain places in the Twin Cities, that construction will be down. But most of those contracts, you got to remember, were let a year ago. There's just not as much highway funding money that's going to get spent in Minnesota, I don't believe, in the next biennium.
Good. Crime Victims' Rights Event. Can we go with that?
I don't know anything about that.
Soil and Water was JJ. Up to me, Kettle River Watershed. We had our meeting. We approved they're gonna hire a resource technician in Carleton County out of the grant dollars to help with some stuff. That was a big decision item. And the other thing we decided was we're not gonna have a meeting just to have a meeting every month. So we're gonna meet every other month. And then if something comes up, they can call a meeting, so we're not just wasting time at meetings. So that was pretty straightforward. Law Library, that would be Josh. Extension Committee.
Extension, it's always a great meeting to go to because those people, they deal with stuff that touches people. They deal with a lot of our youth. Although we do have extension adult program, but most of us are are interested in what we do with youth. And I think what Extension does ties into what Reese and Terry and Becky and everybody else has been working on to try to get youth involved at the level to keep them out of the court system.
Yeah.
And we know that from, it's a proven fact, the research all points in that direction. Yet it's one of the least funded areas that we have. And
4-H numbers still increasing?
they're hanging in there and it's,
They increased good the last 2 years.
it's hard to tell at this point for, fair projects because everybody signs up to grow a pig or something. And then reality sets in, they don't have a pen, you know, whatever. But, they're doing a good job, I think.
Okay, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. That's
JJ.
too. East Central Solid Waste, Larry, back to you.
Yeah, we had a meeting, had a couple of meetings here lately, but we had one yesterday and finally got, we knew our director was retiring. So we appointed our assistant, John Kellish, to take over and I think we'll see some good things coming. You know, landfills aren't the most exciting thing on earth, but they have to exist. We don't, we continue to buy stuff that we throw away in mass quantities. And so until we get ahead of that curve, we're not gonna get rid of either incinerators or landfills. But we're working on the other end of taking stuff out of the waste stream. We're actually looking at, we have a building that's under construction right now at the transfer station in Cambridge. It's a restore and where people, there's a nonprofit that actually has an employee there that takes stuff that people drop off that's gonna get thrown in the garbage, puts it in a place and sells it, and they're actually paying for that employee plus adding a little money to their nonprofit organization to help some homeless people and stuff. So it's a win-win. It keeps stuff out of our garbage stream and it helps a lot of people out.
Thanks, Steve. East Central Regional Library.
Okay, library board, we did meet, this just Monday again. I think the, budget is an issue there again with some of the federal cutbacks and some of the state things. And it was, our discussion was driven by other board members as well, aware of that. And I think our staff at the library is, obviously they're concerned but they're gonna have to deal with that as well, so. Otherwise, usage of libraries, we had a large presentation on that and actually usage is up. It's not quite reached pre-pandemic levels, but it's on the upswing again, so. Yeah, they're doing some good things.
Anybody have any others to report? None, all right, we'll look at our meetings and.
A question with the upcoming meetings, I did not, maybe I missed it, but I did not see the memorial listed as a meeting, or is that not, we're all excited to be there.
Yeah, we will post that as a quorum
Okay, got it.
or a possible quorum, but that still does not allow you to make decisions or discuss matters of the board.
Yeah.
It just gives now awareness that we expect a quorum or more of you will be at the same location.
Got it. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If there is no other regular business, we are scheduled for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe at 1 p.m. back in this room. They have quite a number of folks who are going to come and be a part of that conversation. And so if you want to recess until 1 p.m.
I will do that. I will call a board and we'll recess till 1 p.m. today.